Beyond the Winning Post is brought to you by our stable of sponsors. George Simon is living his childhood dream calling races at some of New Zealand's biggest race meetings. We caught up with him in his man cave, Iggy's, to discuss his career. Hello.
Hey, paying customer.
How's it going?
Yeah, good, Em. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Welcome to Iggy's.
Wow, this is a setup. How long have you had this?
This has been about a 4 or 5 year project, and it was named after Turmy Loose, who we bred.
Yep.
We used to call him Iggy, so I thought, well, one day when I can rob a bank, I'll get enough money and I'll build a man cave. And this is the centre of the George Simon universe, really. I spent a lot of time in here.
Yeah.
Most of my mates spend a lot of time in this place as well. It's claimed a few victims over the years, but it's a grouse spot, you know, it's just nice and relaxing.
How did you end up becoming a race caller?
It was just a boyhood ambition, really. I was too fat to be a jockey, which is what I wanted to be, and I was also petrified of horses. But I used to go to the races as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old with my father at Te Rapa. And back in those days, it was Sid Tonks who was the caller. And I was just fascinated by listening to him. And of course, the great Peter Kelly as well. And I used to think to myself, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, it'll be easy. And all these years later, it's taken me around the world. I've met some wonderful people. And it's been everything I thought it would be. And probably even better than what I thought it would be. It's the greatest job in the world. I mean, I get to go to the races, I get the best seat in the house to watch the races, I get the chance to have a bet, and at the end of the day, I get paid. Beautiful.
How do you start becoming a race caller? There's no school of race calling.
No, that's right. It's a good question, that, because what a lot of people don't realise, when I first started, I needed work with my voice. It wasn't a radio voice, so I took elocution lessons off my own bat. I can say that it was probably the best thing that I ever did to try and break into this game they call race calling.
George, tell me about your Māori heritage and what it was like for someone starting in this industry as a Māori person.
It was tough. It wasn't plain sailing, Em, and I'm talking about 40 years ago. My full name is George William Simon. Now, there is nothing about a Māori heritage in that name. But I just knew I had the ability to do it if I applied myself, and I did. But it was, people looked at me when they met me for the first time after listening to me call a race, and then they finally saw this George William Simon. They took another look, you know, but there were moments, dare I say it, that people were a little bit surprised. But mate, I'm so proud of where I come from. My hometown is Nguruawahia. And I was born and raised there, did all my schooling there, all my good mates are there in Nguruawahia to this day. I love that place, you know, and I loved growing up. We didn't have anything. My old man was a freezing worker, and the old lady spent all her life looking after these screaming kids, of which there were many.
Yeah.
I was the first, I keep telling everybody she should have stopped then, but no, she had about 10 more, I think. My whānau, I know they get a great kick out of what I do, and that gives me a lot of satisfaction as well. I'm very conscious of where I come from and who I am and who I represent. My Māori heritage on occasions helps me. It does help me relax, funnily enough, and especially on the big moments, I can call on that to help me relax, and it gets me by, so I'm proud of where I come from.
How do you prepare for a race day?
I start building up from the time the fields come out, which are released on the Wednesday, normally for a Saturday meeting. And I go through the fields, look at the horses. 9 times out of 10, I know the colours. They're in here somewhere. And it's just a matter of revision. But when you get horses having their first start on race day, the maiden 2-year-olds and races like that, it gets a bit tricky. But Keith Hobb very graciously taught me the basics of how he learnt the colours, and I use that system to this day. So things have progressed over the years to the stage where I'm adamant that if we had 16 horses come into a bird cage and I'd never seen before, and the jockeys got on, I could memorise those colours and those names within probably 2.5 minutes.
What's the best part of your job?
Best part of my job, Em, is the fact that ever since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, this is what I've always wanted to do. And I get that opportunity and I'm thankful for that, but boy, I worked my ass off to get there.
Yeah.
You know, people think, he's got it made. Really? They weren't there when I was 18, 19 years old and basically just calling trials for a livelihood. I couldn't take any full-time job because I needed to go to the trials to learn how to call. And the trials, sometimes they wouldn't be on until, there might be a 3-week gap between the last trial meeting and the next trial meeting.
Yeah.
So I had to try and work out how I was lucky that I was too ugly to have a girlfriend. I didn't have any kids, and I only had to look after my big ugly self. and that enabled me to struggle through the first 10 years or so. But things had kind of fallen into place. So.
Is there anything else you still want to achieve, George?
Look, I had that conversation with my wife Marianne recently, and if there is one thing I'd like to achieve, and it will be a drop the mic moment, which will mean that I will retire on the spot if it ever happened, is to breed a horse that we race and it wins the New Zealand Derby at Ellerslie with me calling it.
Why do you do what you do?
You'll never hear me say this again in my life, I promise you. Probably because I know I'm good at it. And I say that with all due respect. I know I'm good at it. Some people may think I'm not, but I know how difficult this job is, and I think I add to the occasion as well. So, so to me that's important, but it's also important because I know the people who mean the most to me get a kick out of what I do, and that's pretty special.
Speaking of how difficult it is, I wondered if you could perhaps teach me a little bit about calling. I must admit, my greatest fear is that I'm in studio on trackside, comms go down to George Simon at Pukekohe Park, and I have to call the race myself.
Look, I think you'd be a natural. You would be a natural. You've got the broadcasting experience for a start. Yeah, I reckon we could, with just a few tricks of the trade that I can tell you, I think we'll get by. In fact, I reckon we'll give it a go.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, let's join Emily Bosson, ladies and gentlemen, for her call on the Dunstan HorseFeeds 1600.
And they're off. Raw Performer was slow out at the back of the field and making good ground on the inside is On the Rocks. Jason Beltry just sitting out wide and Hey Tiger taking a sit in behind them. Raw Performer made up nice ground on the inside of Watch This Space, and at the back of the field is Lincoln King.
500 metres
500 metres to go, and it's On the Rocks, on the rail, grinding away nicely. Royal Performer making up some nice ground down the outside.
Jason
Beltry just floundering a bit on his run.
Back to the leaders.
His Raw Performer comes back making up 100. He's making up some good ground. Jaron Dennis really getting stuck into your leader here, Raw Performer, who streaks away from the rest of the field. A look behind, an easy victory for Raw Performer. Shut the gate time. He cruises down to an easy win from Lincoln King. Watch this space. Jason Beltry on the rocks, and last but by no means least, I don't know who. Hey Tiger.
Hey Tiger was last. Well, how did that go, Em?
It's a long way, George. I don't know how you do it, actually.